we're looking at each other, grinning like we just discovered teeth, and we really don't know what we're going to be talking about.
We just discovered teeth. Every time I go live on anything, I go, because some part of me can't quite believe it actually worked.
Well, but the other thing about this whole world in which we live is that all the stills that are produced from videos, everybody always looks so bad that I'm convinced they actually choose, that the machine is designed to choose people looking like, some kind of cartoon character who's just,
I will show you later the still they grab from my nighttime, a few thoughts from those who can't sleep. Years from now, when I look back, I'll be thinking, wow, she looked so bad most of the time. And it's because they always capture the moment where you're like,
but nobody ever looks good. I've never seen anybody look good. At one point I was at a meeting and one person, when the thing froze, looked great. And we're all like, we should just call the meeting off, take a photograph and call the meeting off, because we've never seen somebody, freeze like.
No, it never happens.
Anyway, welcome everybody. Las Vegas and Louisiana and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Vermont, San Antonio, Macon, Georgia. I haven't done the same state twice yet. Missouri, Tennessee. I wonder if I could go through all of them. Florida, Oklahoma. Hi. Anyway, we are here in, I guess an exhausted sort of way. What a freaking week. What?
Okay. I'm going to say, someone just said, who is her guest?
Who is your guest or my guest?
Your guest. Your guest.
Okay. Just so you know. I don't know. Who are you?
Anyway.
So this is actually the time that this is. I am Heather Cox Richardson. I am a professor of history, and the woman to the other side of the screen is Dr. Joanne Freeman. She is also an American historian, but she studies things that are not important, unlike me. I'm sorry. She studies the founding of the nation and the early republic. And I'm just teasing her because I do my center focus is on the 19th and early 20th century. So we're just friends, and we discovered long ago that when we get together, we talk about the normal stuff that people talk about, but invariably we end up talking about the larger picture of American society. And over the years, people who have heard us have had us do podcasts and all kinds of stuff together. And they were always pretty scripted in a way that our just chat conversations never were. So we were chatting one day, as usual, over Zoom. And we just thought, let's turn on the cameras. And apparently people like that when we turn on the cameras. So this is not like my normal politics chat or the letters I write or anything. And it's not like Joanne's stuff, which is she does an early morning, early to me. She does a morning thing where she looks at American documents and really digs into the history. And then she has this wildly popular late night things for people who can't sleep, but most people are just calling it Freeman After Dark. This is where we sort of come together on Saturday mornings and talk about what we thought was interesting over the course of the week. So she has her own YouTube channel as well. She's an avid runner. She's
and you love Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, that's who the two of us are. Anyway, now that we've done that, I'm kidding about the avid runner, by the way, thing. That's just a long-standing joke. How was your week?
How was my week? How was all of our weeks?
It was too freaking long.
It was really long. It was a month of a week. And as we were just saying before we beamed in here, you just can't stop. There's just no stopping point.
No, and every morning you wake up and you think, well, today's the day I can take a breather, and then something else happened. I had a big piece I wanted to write yesterday on the court case that set up Citizens United. And then, of course, we got the arrest of Don Lemon. And that, honestly, I feel like is something we need to kick around a bit, because it's a real window into where the country is right now in a lot of different ways. So you are in New York, and how are people reacting to that arrest? How are you reacting to that arrest? Are you worried about it?
Well, Am I worried about it? Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about it not it's farcical, the arrest itself. So I'm not necessarily worried for Don Lemon yet. I'm worried because Black journalists are getting arrested. Journalists are getting arrested, number one. All by itself, that's like an authoritarian bingo card center square. And Black journalists. So yeah, I'm concerned. It's part of it's like if you have a checkoff sheet of things that wannabe dictators, authoritarians do, arresting journalists is a big one. And making sure that they're Black journalists with this crew of people who are doing it, that's a message.
So I want to get into that, but maybe it would help a little bit if you set up for everybody why a free press is so important to the framers of the Constitution, because they throw it right there in the First Amendment to the Constitution. And you actually have a really good way of looking at that Bill of Rights, what the Bill of Rights does. It doesn't actually confer individual rights. Can you walk people through that?
Yeah, sure. And absolutely that the founding folk, that generation, saw a free press as essential for a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, the country was so huge. How would it be united together as a country if there wasn't a press actually doing that? But more important, the press is supposed to offer the people who are supposed to be controlling everything insight and information on what is happening behind the scenes in government, behind the scenes. The press, it never at the time, I mean, although it was used for entertainment purposes, it wasn't seen as something that was for entertainment. It was seen as something that was for the people, as almost a branch of government, particularly the press. James Madison talks about the press in these early years almost like it's a fourth branch of government. And as you suggested, the Bill of Rights isn't necessarily just, I have my right to protest. I have my right to free speech. The Bill of Rights was a Bill of Rights against this new Constitution, which was creating a government that was very powerful. And the idea was, we the people maintain these rights. It was about Americans maintaining rights, not about individual sort of stepping out. People at the time were thinking about a big we. So a free press, almost a branch of government, essential. I'm going to quote Thomas Jefferson. At some point, when they were debating whether the Senate should be open to the press, open to journalists or not, because it was closed for a while, Thomas Jefferson says something along the lines of, well, if it's closed and we keep it closed, it'll be the most corrupt body on the face of the earth. What keeps the corruption out? The fact that the press can see what's happening. So yeah, a free press is a way that we the people at least can attempt to think about accountability. And if you are working against a free press, you are trying to get power and block people from seeing it.
So you've talked about that in the past. Sort of the thing I like is sort of as a shield. The Bill of Rights are a shield against the government. It's not about you have the individual right to carry a gun. Right. It's that the government doesn't have the right to stop the militias. Correct. And that's really important with this idea of the free press, because one of the things that I don't think we talk enough about is the fact that the American people are empowered to be part of the government. I mean, we are the government. We are the people who are supposed to be doing stuff. And trying to take that away, trying to take away the press so that we don't know what's happening, is a real assault. Not just, we say it's an assault on the First Amendment. That's true. But it's also taking away our power to conduct oversight, to speak up about what we care about, to do all those things, because people don't know what's going on.
That's why it becomes important to people who want power, because they're going to cut out the people, us, from having the power that is essential to have a democratic form of government.
So this was really interesting, though. There's a couple of things that fascinated me about the arrests, not only of Lemon, but of Georgia Fort, the other Black journalist arrested. And there were other people arrested that we should talk about as well. But Many people described Don Lemon as a former CNN host, which is true. But as I said earlier, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. He's an independent producer. And the fact is that in this moment, one of the things that's happened, really taken off since 2024, is that independent producers, independent news agencies are the ones that are really getting the scoops, the ones that are really holding the president and the administration to account. And the going after them specifically, I thought was really a headliner, because the whole point of being an independent producer is that you don't have the kind of resources behind you that a major company does, a major news company does. So, basically it looked like they were essentially warning, because the case is so frivolous against him. They're basically warning independent producers, just so you know, we're going to ruin you, because hiring lawyers to defend yourself is going to be so expensive that basically we're going to put you all out of business. And I don't think independent producers are going to react by caving, to be honest. I know a lot of them and talked to a lot of them yesterday, and they're like, fuck them. I'm sorry. Am I allowed to say that? That's literally what somebody said. I'm sorry. I don't usually swear on these things, but I was thinking in my head of that conversation. That is literally what an independent producer said to me. But I think people are making the mistake of being like, they're going after the press. But what they're really going after in this arrest is independent producers, who are the ones who are not responding to the corporations that own them, but are actually doing the original job of the press, which is working for the people. And I'm concerned. The only person I saw who mentioned, and I was traveling, so I may not have seen, I didn't see everything. The only person who called out that these were independent producers was Jason Crow of Colorado. And that, I think it's important that those were not, this is not the New York Times they went after. They've gone after the Times. These were independent producers.
It is important, and it's important for several reasons. You've listed a bunch of them. I'll add one. It's also important because they're vulnerable targets, right?
Yeah.
If these folks, if the regime were super strong, they wouldn't be picking off individual independent journalists. So it's a vulnerable target. And my hunch would be, just like they thought, oh, we're going to go into Minneapolis, we're going to crush them, they're going to cave, it's Minneapolis. And they basically, that the whole wave is breaking on the power of the people. There's probably an assumption that they can go after independent journalists, they can go after Black independent journalists, and they're going to cave, they don't have resources, they're not going to go to trial, and it'll be a way that, once again, they can show how strong they are. But once again, they're demonstrating weakness.
Yeah, so that is the other piece that really interested me, is that they picked off 2 Black independent journalists, and the other people arrested were all Black. Although you and I both have looked this up, the people who were protesting in that church were not all Black. There were white people protesting as well. And speaking to the issue of it being about weakness, to me, this is all a reaction to the fact that the American people have turned against ICE. They have turned against the federal agents coming to the cities, and they've turned against the administration. And the reason that, not the only reason, but the reason that Renee Good and Alex Preddy became such flashpoints, were because Americans were pissed off about a lot of stuff anyway, but they're in the killings and then the lies that the administration told about Good and Preddy. White Americans really could viscerally see that the rise of authoritarianism did not mean they were going to be privileged any longer. And so when they manufactured a case against Don Lemon, who Trump's hated forever anyway, they really manufactured a case against him. And then they pulled in all these Black people as well. And to me, that was a message to white Americans to say, hey, wait, this really is about race. You don't want to be standing against us, because we're proving to you that this is just us, going after those types of Black people. And I was just looking up the statistics the other day. Most Americans spend less than 4 minutes a week engaging with politics. So what they're going to see is Black people broke up a white church service, and Trump and Bondi are defending religion, which is complete crap. That's not what happened at all. But to me, the fact that they are so desperately, desperately trying to rewrite this moment to say, no, 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 it's not about authoritarianism. It's about those people. Again, classic authoritarianism. And I thought that was really transparent in this particular arrest. What do you think?
And think about the timing of this, right? So not only are they making this point about, no, we're going after Black people, like you're safe. The reason they need to say that right now is because they gunned down 2 white people in the street, right? They murdered 2 white people. And so clearly there's some kind of logic there that's like, well, the people are really turning against us, and we're out of control. So what are we going to do? We're going to make it clear that this is about race, and that it's not necessarily that white people don't have to feel like they're really in danger. So we're going to go after these independent, vulnerable Black journalists. You can see what feels to me like a kind of blatant obviousness about their need to focus on race in the face of the fact that killing white people got white people's attention. But again, to me, like Minneapolis, all of these attempts to rewrite the narrative, and the fact that they're doing so in a blundering, bullying, forceful way, which is almost always inaccurate, hits too many targets, is clearly a grab, a sort of smash and carry kind of a thing. They're not rewriting the narrative to demonstrate that they're strong and in control. That if they may think they are, that's what they want to do, I'm sure.
They don't think they are.
Showing again and again and again and again is that they're not strong, and they're not in control, and they're grabbing out at whatever they can get to try and prove how strong they are, and to try and get the audience back that they realize, that I don't know how they can not realize now, that it's not just the people who they would brand like crazy leftists who are against ICE. Everybody's against ICE.
Well, man, and then the protest yesterday, the huge protest.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And you're in trouble. Were there protests in New York?
Yes. There were protests all over. I mean, I was
reposting
another video. Yeah.
So you know what? Let me run this by you. You know what says to me they know they're not in control, that they're madly searching for anything. First of all, of course, is the fact they did release more Epstein files, which they'd rather be talking. If they would rather be talking about the Epstein files than ICE, they're not in a good place. But you know what? I actually wanted to write about, and then there wasn't room. And I think this is fascinating. Did you see Lindsey Graham of South Carolina melting down yesterday?
That's all that registered was that was happening, but I didn't get the details.
Well, so I mean, I can get the details are simple, right? That the ICE is so unpopular that the Senate agreed to pull out of the appropriations bills the funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And at first, the John Thune, the leader of the Senate, the Republican from South Dakota, was like, no, we're not going to do that. And then he had to. I mean, basically, he had to do it. So that funding got pulled out. But part of that was the House in the appropriations bill stripped away something that the Senate had inserted in the, I think it was the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of last July, that senators could sue the U.S. government for $500,000 apiece if their phone records had been their toll records had been investigated by Jack Smith.
How interesting!
Not the House, just the Senate. And the House was like, "Hey, wait just a minute here.
Exactly.
We're up to our necks in January 6th as well." So they stripped that out. So Lindsey Graham throws a hissy fit over that. At the same time that Donald Trump, of course, has just sued the U.S. government, the IRS, for $10 billion. right? And that was sort of his cover for that. But what I saw was a man who is freaking out because he recognizes that it sure looks like the Republicans are going to lose the House and the Senate. And I don't know how many, if you followed this, but when Georgia indicted Trump, the grand jury thought that Lindsey Graham should be indicted as well. And there were other people that they wanted to indict in that whole, I think it was a conspiracy case. And I thought, that's not a man who's mad about losing the right to sue for $500,000. I don't know what the man's net worth is, but that's a man who is just completely losing it because he recognizes that they're losing power. And if they lose power, he's in real trouble. That's how I read it.
No, I think that's true. And I think just the simple fact, I totally agree with you, that was inserted in there by the Senate and that it was pulled out by people, including Republicans who pulled it out, right? So that's some of what we're seeing now too, which is important to say point blank, that there are cracks in the Republican foundation in which people are beginning to step away a little. Now, some of those people may be stepping away because, for good, virtuous reasons, I don't know. I think some of them realize that ICE is so unpopular and that these folks in power are so unpopular that if they would like to preserve a career for themselves in politics, they actually have to think about where they stand, whatever the reason is. And I think a lot of them, it's the second reason, but whatever the reason is, the fact that they're stepping back, the fact that something that Lindsey Graham wanted and thought was in place, and they're so used to getting what they want, right? Asserting what they want, and everyone falls in line, and people are scared not to be in line. The fact, I totally agree with your take, the fact that what just happened shakes that narrative, smashes that narrative. Yeah, if you had some concerns about where you were going to end up in all of this, yeah, you would be pretty freaked out.
So this goes back, though. What you just said is we need to call out that this is happening, that Republicans are backing away, either for political reasons or for moral reasons. I don't care what their reasons are. I mean, I think at some level you have to recognize that people who are involved in politics are people who want to get elected. I mean, obviously, right? And what you're seeing is what you always talk about. Popular pressure is saying to them, I gotta agree to split this bill out because people are so mad about ICE. And the things that are increasingly we're seeing is, of course, material from the Epstein files, which is appalling. But, the fact that the president of the United States is suing the US government for not only that $10 billion, but also $230 million, I think it is, for the fact that he claims that the investigations into Russia and into him retaining classified documents were invasions of his privacy. This has never happened. We've never had the president trying to shake down the government. The corruption is off the freaking charts. And, the more that independent journalists, by the way, call that out, and the angrier Americans get, the more the system is, in fact, going to respond to what we want.
Well, and the more, and that's totally right to call it out, the more that we see of that, thanks to independent journalists, the louder we need to be. The corruption has been all along the way off the charts. Now it's just supersonic off the charts. And I love the way that you just put it, shaking down the government. It is precisely what's happening. But at this point, as horrible as it is to say, some of that corruption has come to seem normal. Not like it's normal as it should always be happening, but I mean normal as in it keeps happening. It's always happening. And we can't get into a place where we're like, oh, it's just more of that corruption. No, never, right?
Plus, it's not. I mean,
it's not. I'm not saying it is.
But I just mean, I hear that all the time too. And look at all the corruption scandals from the Biden administration. Oh, look, there weren't any, so they had to invent some. One of the things that I think you articulate so well is the American people taking back our government. And part of that is the oversight that says, it's not like cosmically one party is corrupt and the other party is not. One party has oversight and the other party doesn't right now. And that's what the American people should be doing. And I agree with you. This idea that everyone's corrupt and we should fight against the government, that's the Republican line from the 1980s. The reality is that many public servants, most public servants, actually want to do what's right,
You don't hear about the swamp much these days, do you? Draining the swamp. We're living in the swamp. But yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. My point, I guess, was just don't get numb to it just because it's there all the time. And related to what you just said, it's so easy in a sense to forget it, which is why I'm screaming about it all the time. Never forget, this is our government. We own this government. It's our government. And they may not act like it. And they may be trying to block us out. And they may be arresting reporters so that we can't see. And they may be trying in any number of ways to keep us out of the picture. But the fact is, constitutionally, as far as reality is concerned, as far as democracy is concerned, as far as we, the people, are concerned, it's our government. And whether they recognize that or not, we have to recognize that.
Well, and I am going to be an old Yankee here and add, it's our money. This is one of the things that just blows my mind is how freaking expensive the Department of Homeland Security has become. And I actually wrote about this and then haven't published it yet, how expensive the deployments of the Federalized National Guard and the Marines have been to basically as a vanity project for Trump. And now, of course, he's talking about having a car racing in Washington, D.C. for the 250th. And you just think of this and think, who on earth does he think is writing these checks? Because I would much rather support Medicaid than I would supporting, these detention centers for ICE. And actually, that's one of the things that happened quite late last night in the vote in the Senate for passing that bill with the DHS funding stripped out, was Bernie Sanders, an independent of Vermont, actually put in a vote for an amendment that said we're going to claw back the $76 billion that the Republicans put into ICE in July, and we're going to put that to shoring up Medicaid. And it failed, but all the Democrats and 2 Republicans voted for it because I think people are putting pressure on them and saying, I want to fund the scientific research. I want to fund Medicaid. I want to fund my street not having potholes and my bridges not falling down. I don't want to fund these thugs in the streets. And that is important.
It's part of, the continued Trump outlook is that everything is his. The White House is his. Our money is his. The nation is his. It's all his, right? He owns all of it. My army, we could go back throughout it, even term number 1 and see this. But yeah, part of what he's doing here is not even thinking about the fact that that is our money and that he is taking our money that we give to the government for the government to do its work to protect and preserve and keep the nation going and spending it on his little pet projects aimed at giving him and keeping him in power. So yeah, it's more evidence of the fact that he fundamentally doesn't recognize it's our money. He fundamentally doesn't even really think about we the people beyond how much he has to keep himself in power. Just the fact that it hasn't been that long since he was creating marble coated bathrooms and having, fancy balls at Mar-a-Lago, all of that stuff, showing off his gilded lifestyle. If you had an ounce of a thought about the nation and the people and where we are, you probably wouldn't do that. But it never occurs to him. This is like way back, term number 1. And it's going to sound minor, but I think it's representative of all of this. There was an early point at which he got on Air Force One And you know how presidents, when they get on Air Force One, they climb up, and then at the top of the stairs, they turn and do this. They wave to the American people. And he didn't. He just got on the plane. And I remember thinking, wait a minute. He actually ignored us. Like, he got on the plane, and it didn't even occur to him to like acknowledge the public. And it's so routine. We all have that image in our head. At that really early point, I thought, and that was when I started thinking about norms and things like that are not laws. They're not written down. They're just things that happen, but they happen because they represent a value, or they represent something that we believe should be in place. And that was like, if I could, I would go back and find when that was. It was right at the beginning of his first term that he signaled, "I'm not thinking about you at all. Thank you very much," and got on the plane.
Well, you're reminding me that during the Depression, Herbert Hoover tried to indicate that everything was all right by having incredibly fancy meals and, fancy waiters and all that. And when FDR got into the White House, Eleanor said, "We are not going to be eating like kings when nobody's got any food." So during the FDR's administration, nobody wanted to go to lunch at the White House because the whole point is it was supposed to be like cheaper than diner food. And it was. And they're like, really? I'm in the White House and I'm eating like a slice of pineapple in.
Oh no, don't even tell me. What is it? A piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli. What was that?
Oh, that was that. So for those of you who haven't seen it, Joanne's referring to the fact that the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, tried to tell people that prices were down because you could eat for $3 a meal or something, and they had a picture of it, and it was the saddest thing you've ever seen. And I'm like,
piece of chicken.
I found that so incredibly offensive.
Yes.
Just the idea that here you pee on, let them eat cake, right?
Right. Well, right. You don't need $3. Your kids need only $1.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know what you need. You don't need very much. I mean, yeah, I'm not even going to allow myself to.
I was going to say this, I'm going right here to Carnegie and those people.
Yeah.
If you let the people have money, they're just going to fritter it away in like food and housing. And then, I won't be able to amass all the money to do things like build opera houses. Anyway, that we got far afield there, but to go back to the money thing. So when the president sued the IRS for $10 billion, I looked back at those old articles when the pieces about his taxes were leaked, which is what he's suing over. And he did not pay American income taxes for a number of years, even while he was paying almost $200 million. I'm sorry, $200,000 to China for their.
Well, the more he was trying to hide his tax records, the more it was clear that.
But like the fact that he was not paying income taxes, which is so indicative of everything that's wrong with this country, not least because income is taxed way higher than capital gains. So the fact that already he's getting away with not having to pay taxes on capital gains, and you can borrow against those capital gains without paying taxes on them, which also explodes my head. That's how Elon Musk raises so much money. But I'm sitting there thinking it's coming up on tax season, and all of us are writing these enormous checks because I don't care how much money you make, whatever you're ending up paying the government looks pretty enormous.
Yeah.
And he is not paying as much in income taxes as my kid who's in graduate school. And
he's trying to give that deal to all of his rich friends, right? I love it, right? Because on a certain level, he assumes that he's right, that there is a group of people, we're moving into oligarchy territory, there's a group of people who like him and support him for that reason. Because what his deal, his gig, his benefits, he's going to spread them around to the other rich people and then give us a piece of chicken and a broccoli sprig.
Well,
So
but that's interesting, and I know we got to go, but that's really interesting because that I think is why they supported him in 2024. Is they didn't want the taxes that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were trying to put into place, the slightly higher taxes. Basically, if we got rid of the Trump tax cuts and the George W. Bush tax cuts, we would be back in the black in terms of the budget. So I think they did that. But one of the things that has been very clear this time around is this is no longer about an oligarchy. He wants everything for himself and for his family. And that's one of the places that it's really time for the very wealthy to wake up and be like, you think this looks great? Take a look at Russia, because all of those oligarchs thought that they were working with Vladimir Putin. And a lot of them have an unfortunate propensity to eat poison or fall out of tall windows. And that is, that's something that I don't think has really hit home to them yet. And it ought to.
Well,
because
right.
It's no longer about oligarchy. It's about a king, and not even a king. It's about a dictator.
It's about a dictator. And what even the rich people, the super rich people who think they're safe because they have billions and he wants it. This is the most obvious thing in the world to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. No one comes out clean, good, and in one piece that deals with him. No one is safe. You cannot engage with him and assume it's all good for me because, fill in the blank. I got money. I've known him for a long time. We're friends. We're in a business deal together. No one comes out whole that deals with him. And these billionaire folk who assume they're immune because they're immune to many things because they have so much money, ultimately they're not.
What is it? Rick Wilson says, everything Trump touches dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, ETTD. That's what that stands for, if you've seen that.
People. Oh, no, I have not. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Everything, the hashtag ETTD, everything Trump touches dies.
I will save that.
There's actually, I hate to go because I feel like things are changing so stupidly fast that we can talk all day.
I know, but we've gone long.
But we've gone long, and it is Saturday. And are you going to make it to the? Oh no, you're not going to go outside because it's 0 degrees, right?
No, although I'm not going to visit the Apple guy, Gary the Apple guy. I'm going to have lunch with a friend. I'm having a social event.
What's that like?
I know. I'll let you know.
How do you do that?
I'll let you know. I'm so looking forward to it. Yeah. So I'm going to skip Gary the Apple guy for a week, who is so amused that he gets mentioned here almost every week. But
hope it's good for his business.
I don't know the name of his company.
Okay. This is why you and I are so bad at this. Now I feel bad. Now I feel like we got to go find out the business of Gary the Apple guy.
Next week I will find out Gary the Apple guy's business, but then we'll be advertising his business. And it's not, I don't know if he even owns the business. Anyway.
All right, never mind.
Gary the Apple.
We'll just wish Gary the Apple guy well. I sort of feel like it's always nice to help each other out if you possibly can.
Yeah.
But, all right. It is always a joy. And I hope you stay warm. And I'll see you next week. I'll be back in a normal schedule next week. And it's always a pleasure. And I love you, Joanne.
I love you, Heather.
We remembered. Have a good week. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, folks.